chickened out. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's not the kind of language I use on this program. That's the kind of language that I and I hope you have come to regard as beneath the dignity of this hour of television, mostly because I studiously avoid cliche, and chickened out is like a wicked, lazy cliche, really cliche phrasing. It's the kind of thing you can expect from the lowbrows of social media world, where Elon Musk, who makes the mistake of thinking he's actually quite funny, often uses even uglier language. But Trump chickened out is actually big news today. Big news in China, where the hashtag Trump chickened out was trending on Chinese social media. Chickened out is language beneath the dignity of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, of course. So tonight, instead of saying chickened out, they wrote this. Another harsh reality is that China called Mr. Trump's bluff and seems to have won this round. Beijing has also warned countries not to do trade deals with the United States that exclude China, or else. With even U.S. allies facing Mr. Trump's tariff assault, Beijing's threat has resonated in a way that it never previously did. U.S. diplomatic sway is ebbing. The question going forward is whether Mr. Trump is internalizing these economic and political lessons, or merely pausing to fight his trade war another day. We doubt even Mr. Trump knows the answer, since so much of his decision-making is ad hoc. And so there's the Wall Street Journal saying, Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. And in Wall Street Journal speak, yeah, they said he chickened out. They did. And so, after trying to play the world's biggest tough guy by launching a trade war with China and the world, Donald Trump not only did not scare China a bit, but he is being humiliated in China as the world's biggest clown and the most economically incoherent American president China and the world have ever seen. Now, remember way, way back to last week when Donald Trump was promising that he would have a big, beautiful trade agreement with China very soon, like now or sooner. No one in China is calling the White House. No one. And so, with absolutely no proposal on the table from China, no concession from China, nothing but sharp, targeted, retaliatory action taken by China against the American economy, Donald Trump has decided to surrender to China without China giving Donald Trump anything in return. Absolutely nothing. Donald Trump said today that he was going to, at some time unknown, cut his absurdly high tariffs on Chinese goods, saying that the tariffs will, quote, come down substantially, but it won't be zero. Those were his words. Won't be zero. So now, tariffs that were 145%, Donald Trump is saying, won't be zero. Okay. And because Donald Trump is publicly losing his trade war and publicly surrendering to China, the stock market gained back some of its massive Trump losses today. The stock market wants Donald Trump to lose. That's what they're saying. They want him to lose his trade war. The stock market wants Donald Trump to surrender in the craziest worldwide trade war ever initiated in the history of the world. And that's why the stock market went up today, because the Trump tariffs are terrible for the American economy, terrible for American consumers, terrible for American workers, and terrible for Wall Street. And Donald Trump said they're going to come down. That's all it took. That's all it took for the stock market to go up. Remember when Donald Trump was promising how quickly China would be calling him, the president of China would be desperately calling Donald Trump to make a deal? Here's what the Chinese government spokesperson said today, quote, claiming it wants to reach an agreement with China while constantly applying maximum pressure is not the right way to engage with China. and it simply won't work. China's position on the tariff war initiated by the United States is very clear. We do not want to fight, but we are not afraid to fight. If it's to fight, we'll fight till the end. If it's to talk, our door is wide open. We'll fight to the end. The rest of the countries of the world have absolutely no doubt which side of the Trump versus China trade war is willing to fight to the end and which side chickened out. Donald Trump, the man who never apologizes, the man who never backs down, but in fact frequently backs down, sounded like he was trying to apologize to China.
With China. Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice.
Oh, he's not going to blame them for COVID. Remember when he said he was going to blame them for COVID, like last week, make them pay for COVID in whatever his final trade deal with China would be in his trade war with China? That's what he said. He brought it up. That's why he was asked about it today. Are you going to blame them for COVID-19 when you're negotiating with them? And he said, oh, no. That was the cowardly lion roar you were hearing. That was the Trump nonsense. Now, Donald Trump is publicly begging President Xi to call him. And President Xi is not calling. The president of China is not picking up the phone. He's sending out a spokesperson to say, we'll fight to the end. No one in the Trump administration has said, we will fight to the end. Donald Trump wouldn't dare say today, we will fight to the end. His Treasury Secretary didn't dare say, we'll fight to the end. His usually clownish Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, wouldn't dare say, we'll fight to the end, because they won't, because they've already lost. Donald Trump's constant public flailing around ignorantly about tariffs in the White House these days has become a much more difficult rhetorical challenge for him than the way he idiotically talked about tariffs during the presidential campaign and lied to his voters every single time. He constantly told his campaign rallies that China would pay the Trump tariffs. He constantly told voters that not one of them would ever pay a Trump tariff, when in fact all of them and only them would pay the Trump tariffs. And China would never, and no foreign country would ever, pay a tariff imposed by the United States. They never have, they never will, because that is not how tariffs work. Donald Trump never admitted that a Trump tariff, a tariff imposed by the United States, is simply an increase on the price of that product in the United States, and only in the United States, and is only paid by buyers in the United States. But today, in his desperate tariff ramblings, Donald Trump finally admitted in one line, one little line, how tariffs actually work. Donald Trump said the words, and this was very little noticed today by the news media. He said the words about tariffs. He said, you add that to the price of a product. Yeah. That's what I've been saying about Donald Trump's tariffs since the first time he ever used the word tariff years ago. And today, Donald Trump finally, after years of lying every single time he talked about who pays the tariff, after years of lying about that, he finally said in a little noticed comment, which those of you who've joined me in this multi-year crusade against Trump tariffs here in this program really deserve to hear.
So when you add that to the price of a product, you know, a lot of those products aren't going to sell.
That's right, Tariff Man. When you add the tariff to the price of the product, which is exactly how it works, A lot of those products aren't going to sell, and the more products that don't sell, including American products that don't sell because they have components in them that have been tariffed, that is exactly how you get a recession, a really, really big recession. On Monday, Donald Trump met with the CEOs of the big retail stores, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, who told him that they could be 2 weeks away from empty shelves. And everyone in America walking into a Home Depot or a Target or a Walmart and seeing empty shelves would know exactly who to blame. They would blame the president, who is now polling disastrously on the economy and on his illegal and inane tariff war that he is decisively losing. A Reuters poll finds Donald Trump's approval rating on the economy is now 37%. 57% disapprove of how Donald Trump is managing or trying to manage inflation, which is to say increasing it. Polling shows 87% concerned about inflation, 86% worried about the cost of living, and 76% concerned about a recession. Donald Trump has said he couldn't care less if the price of cars goes up. He said, quote, "I couldn't care less if they raise prices." Spoken like a spoiled rich kid who grew up to be a rich Republican president riding in the back seat of government cars.